Welcome back to the show. The Supreme Court has sided with BC and Ontario's law societies in a case that pitted religious freedom against human rights, particularly those of the LGBTQ communities. The court ruled that those regulatory bodies can refuse to accredit Trinity Western's proposed Christian law school because of the university's policy that students must pledge to abstain from sex outside of heterosexual marriage. For more on the case and the broader impact it could have in Canada, Howard Anglin joins us from Calgary. He's the executive director of the Canadian Constitution Foundation. Walk us through a little bit about what this decision is about and what it means for Canadians.
Well, thank you, Mercedes. I think the headlines that you'll see will be that this is a victory for LGBTQ plus communities. And that's an understandable social reaction. But from a legal perspective, that's not really what this case is about. It's not a traditional rights case. It's not like when the Supreme Court found or held that there's a right to abortion or a right to physician-assisted death. There's nobody who today has the right to do something that they didn't have the right to do yesterday. So it's not a traditional rights case. What it is, though, is it's a case about how the courts will review decisions by administrative bodies, by state bodies, when those decisions violate our fundamental charter rights. And the choice the court had was between being very deferential to administrative decisions that violate charter rights or applying a more rigorous analysis. And it chose the first option, that when courts are confronted with decisions by administrative bodies, like professional regulatory bodies in this case, they will not generally second-guess their decisions, even when those decisions may violate somebody's charter rights, like the right to religious freedom in this case. In that sense, it's a dilution of charter protections. And I think that civil libertarians and people that care about charter rights will come to regret this decision in the future.
So basically what this is doing, you're saying, is devolving, instead of a function of the court to determine your charter rights, it's allowing, for example, a bar association or the Canadian Medical Association to determine that kind of thing.
Yes. In recent years, the courts have, and the Supreme Court in particular, because of course it sets the rules for all the other courts, have become more deferential to decisions made by administrative bodies. Those could be human rights tribunals, they could be lawyers' regulatory bodies, medical regulatory bodies, nurses' regulatory bodies, any administrative body of the state. They've become more deferential, and this case reaffirmed that they will generally defer to those decisions, even when those decisions, as the court acknowledged in this case, do violate somebody's fundamental charter rights.
So is it, I guess, kind of odd, though, that you have a university that would tell you who you can and can't have sex with, and you have to agree to that in order to attend there? So is there not a problem with that kind of a policy?
There may be a social problem or a moral problem from some people's judgment, but of course the charter doesn't apply to private actors. So Trinity Western University is not actually bound by the charter. And that's what I think is most troubling about this decision. It turns the charter on its head. The point of the charter, the intent of the charter, is to protect minorities from state coercion. In a pluralist live and let live society, we've accepted that the state can't force certain people to abide by majority opinion. So usually a case like this would involve the court saying that Trinity Western's rights to have be governed by its own religious principles is something that the state has to accommodate. But instead it turned it around and said, if the Law Society wants to uphold some sort of general social principle, what it calls charter values, it can use those charter values to actually override the written charter rights of a private organization like Trinity Western. So it's really an inversion of what we traditionally understood as the protections of the charter.
Okay, well, we have to wrap it up there, but thank you so much for that analysis. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.